So after watching UFC 254 and specifically after seeing Robert Whittaker's incredible performance in the co-main event against a really tough guy and Jared Cannonier, who at the time before this fight was undefeated in the middleweight division, 3-0. You know, he looked like a new fighter at middleweight and everyone was picking him over Whittaker. And Whittaker just came out and showed that he's a step ahead. You know, he looked incredible in that fight. You know, he was a step ahead of Cannonier in every exchange. Cannonier throw a leg kick, boom, Whittaker throw a jab. You know, it was just really impressive. And I mean, Whittaker just looked sharp. He looked fast. There was power behind his punches. He was taking some leg kicks, but it really didn't seem to affect his movement much. Now, maybe that would have changed in a 5-round fight, but hey, it was a 3-round fight. So with that being said, he did look like the better fighter, and to me, he clearly proved that he and Adesanya are the two best fighters in the middleweight division, a step ahead of everybody else at this moment. I mean, it's clear to me that they're the two best. And Whittaker has showed great work on the ground as well in his last 2 fights against Darren Till and against Jared Cannonier. He showed great work on the ground, and I think if he could, you know, you asked the question, is a rematch between Adesanya and Whittaker going to go any different than their first fight, which Adesanya won very convincingly in the beginning of the second round, almost knocked him out at the end of the first round. With that being said, I do think this rematch would be much different than the first time around. Now, that doesn't mean I'm saying I think Whittaker will win, but I think he would pose a much greater threat to Adesanya, especially if he could figure out how to score a takedown on Adesanya. I think that would drastically change the fight. Now, that's obviously not going to be easy. I mean, Adesanya clearly has incredible takedown defense and obviously great range control. But with that being said, if he can score a takedown, he clearly has, I think, the advantage on the ground, especially if he's on top. And with that being said, I think Whittaker will give the best fight against Adesanya. I mean, Adesanya's beat pretty much everybody pretty convincingly. I mean, he wasn't that active in the Romero fight, but neither was Romero. So with that being said, nobody's really came out and beat up Israel Adesanya. You know, Gastelum gave him a great fight, but other than Gastelum, really, he's pretty much put on great performances. So I think Whittaker now as the challenger, which is another twist to the rematch. You know, Whittaker is not the champ, not coming off of, you know, fighting 10 rounds with Yoel Romero, right? So now Whittaker's the challenger. Maybe he has a new refresh love for the sport. And I'm not saying I think he'll win, but I do think he will put up a great fight against Israel Adesanya. 2 great strikers, and I think he'll be more disciplined this time because you're going to need a lot of discipline to fight Adesanya, maybe the most disciplined striker in the sport, which, you know, clearly showed against Romero. He wasn't gonna do anything that could get him hurt, you know. So with that being said, Adesanya is a tough fight. He's a tough fight. I'm not saying I think Whittaker can go out there and beat him. Maybe he can, but I'm not predicting that. But what I will predict is that Whittaker will have a much better performance than he did when he was the champ and Adesanya was the challenger.